Hello and welcome everyone. This is the second part of the Around the World tour videos series that I've been creating. Now, in the last video, we flew from Prestwick in Scotland to Keflavík in Iceland, and today we're going to be flying from Keflavík in Iceland, of course, as it's the second leg, to Iqaluit, I believe it's called, in Canada, on the east coast. Now, this is quite a long flight, and it was around about the maximum range of the Pilatus PC-12, and we'll see how that goes. So stay tuned for potentially some low fuel situations. Now, this is going to be a bit more different to the last video, because the last video we stayed at a fairly low altitude, around about 11,000 feet, 12,000, because there were issues with pressurization for this aircraft. However, I haven't had any problems in free flight. That may not be the same in Korea, for example. However, I have had no issues. So we'll get up to a nice high cruising altitude so that the flight is a little bit easier and the fuel economy is slightly better as well. So we can see the PC-12 sitting here. We are in Keflavík airport on the apron. So we're going to get aboard the aircraft once we've removed the engine covers, the chocks, the pitot tubes, etc. And then we'll get ourselves in there. PC-12 is actually a pretty fun aircraft to fly. The autopilot's pretty intuitive, haven't had very many issues. It did take a little bit of time to get used to a few different parts of it, but I would say that I have actually been enjoying flying the aircraft. And it does also look very nice. One criticism though I have is that there's no way to clear all the bugs off the windshield. Like, it becomes very difficult to see out of the windshield once you've been flying for a little while, because it just gets absolutely splattered with dead bugs or whatever else. I thought the first time that it might have been ice, but it's definitely not ice. Now, where we're flying, there's probably going to be some icing issues, so we'll probably need to keep engine anti-ice on, maybe some others, etc. for the windshield so that we can see out. But I don't expect it to be too bad, so we'll see how we get on. I've also changed the display so that we can see the colours of the terrain, etc. in front of us, so you can see that's a bit different from the last video as well. If you haven't seen it, then I would recommend going back and having a look. Let me know what you think. And this is my first real attempt at some sort of series of videos, so we'll see how it goes. It does take quite a bit of time to film them, as you can imagine. I think this flight was around about 5.5 hours ish, so it is quite time consuming, and then there is a lot of, you know, editing and stuff to do. Right, so let's get ourselves onto the runway here, and we'll get ourselves up in the air shortly. Hopefully it's going to be a fairly uneventful flight with some nice views out of the windows. Now, as usual, I will be including some views out of the window of the aircraft, as I think it's quite nice. I enjoy the aesthetics of that, and it feels like you're on a real plane. Side note, I was in Poland just last week, so that's why there's been a bit of an interruption in me being able to finish this, along with other things as well, so glad we finally got to it. Okay, there we go, we are up in the air, so let's begin leg 2. I've been thinking about the route for leg 3. Now, I haven't gotten quite around to doing it yet because it's going to take quite a while. However, Iqaluit takes us to the east of the Americas, I guess, or North America. So we need to travel across the whole of the United States to complete leg 3. So we'll see when we get to that point, how that looks now. I have kind of planned it out a little bit. It looks like a lot of it's going to be over Russia for the 4th leg, so I might try and change the routing a little bit, just to try and keep it interesting. Okay, so we're leveling off, get the autopilot engaged, and then we're going to get flying. Now this is about the point where I'm going to leave you for the video, just to enjoy watching the nice views of Keflavík and the departure, and the route along to Canada. We'll be flying over Greenland, which, as you can imagine, there's probably not a lot to see there other than a lot of ice and clouds, but we'll make do. Anyway, without further ado, I will see you when we get there. Enjoy the video, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Alright, welcome back on board. So we are here at the Iqaluit approach. And we are pretty much set up for the landing. We're hand flying at this point, so please reserve your criticisms. It is only the second time I have landed the aircraft. It's a nice little airport, just kind of nestled in between a couple of little valleys. Nice big long runway as well. And not a huge airport though, to be fair. But I do hear, or at least I read, that it has some history of being a refueling station for military aircraft. Now you can see that we are, by the looks of it, we're getting some kind of low fuel indications. The dinging on the dashboard with the master warning. I think that's telling us that the fuel was starting to run out a little bit. Now, like I said, this was right on the edge. Oh, it's master caution. Oh, even better. It was right on the edge of the abilities of the aircraft, so we pretty much ran it dry. It looks like it anyway. However, here we are, and a little flare just to take the edge off that landing, and let's just make it nice and smooth. Maybe not my best landing in the world, but it was still good. Okay, we're here. We've made it to Iqaluit. Leg 2 has been completed. Last thing to do here is to get off the runway and taxi to somewhere to park. Now, I didn't really park anywhere in particular. I just went wherever I felt like it. Now you can see the aircraft is still quite unhappy with the fact that, well, the fuel may be a bit low. However, it was enough to get us here. Alright, let's get ourselves parked up. Yeah. Okay, so the aircraft is a little bit unhappy about the situation it's found itself in. Like you can see though, if you look up to the top of the screen here, you can see that the windshield is really, really dirty. I don't think it's as bad as it was on leg 1, but it is quite distracting. Especially when you are trying to pick out an airport at maybe a bit more of a distance. So if you were like VFR flying in this aircraft, I think that actually could be a bit of a problem. Now I'm not sure if this has been changed or fixed yet at all. It's potentially something that will be changed. We'll see. Anyway, let's park up here and skid a little bit. Shut the aircraft off. And let's get outside. We'll have a little look around and see what we can find in Iqaluit. Nice big hangar, some people over there. Left the flaps down, probably should have retracted those. Not a huge deal though. Very nice aircraft. It looks cool. It's also quite fast for a propeller aircraft. Then again, I think it's a turboprop. So anyway, well thank you. That's leg 2 completed. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Subscribe. See you later.